Hey, how's it going, people? I'm over here on my center server today, doing another farewell base tour on this one here today. This is my old center base. I don't really use it much anymore, and I'm probably gonna either give it away or sell it. It is on a pretty nice looking map. This is the center. I don't. I think this is still one of the less played maps. It never really it never really had something that made it stand out so much that you had to check it out, you know? I mean, it was kind of one of those that came out when, uh, it didn't really have any special ascension or it didn't have any special new tames or anything like that. So I think pretty much people just adopted it if they were sick of the island when that was the only other option at the time. So yeah, I played it on it back in Legacy though and had a good time on it. So I came back again on the new cluster and built here again. And I've got my standard build. This is my octagonal base build. I made a tutorial video on how to build it. And I've actually showed this build here in another video briefly. And here it is again. This is it. This is the place up on top of the floating mountain. This entire mountain is floating. It's flying in midair. You can actually fly under it. And there it is. Let me pull out my map. You can see where it is on the map. I always like to build my bases in a spot that overlooks the whole world, and this is a pretty epic view up here. Look at this place. Isn't it neat? And yeah, look at that sunset. You can see it from across the map here. You can see the blue orb over there. This is a pretty killer view, and I'm just barely above where you'd see it from the base. Like I can literally, oops, if I can, land here and jump down and see it right from my little platform here. It's pretty epic in every direction too. Like you can see the redwoods, you can see the whole map. You can see the volcanic island over there. You can see the green orb back here, and it's pretty killer. I always like to build my bases in an area like this. I mean, just look at this. This is scenic as hell. Look at this crap. Oops, I'm stuck on something. But yeah, just it's pretty badass. And yeah, so anyway, I'm planning on selling or giving away this base. I used to just use it for, breeding when my cluster was too full. This was before cryopods because my cluster, I mean, my map hasn't been, my server hasn't been full on a tame cap for a while now. But when it used to get tame capped all the time, I'd come over here and I'd do breeding over here and also get artifacts. It's really easy to get artifacts over here because they respawn quicker. And yeah, so I had I got a lot of use out of the base back in the day, but I just don't really use it anymore. And I don't want to maintain all these extra bases because, you got to go on element runs. The element runs on here used to be pretty measly too. Like you'd get a tiny amount of element. It was just really barely worth the trouble. But they doubled it now, so you get a little bit. I mean, you get twice as much. It's still not as much as some of the other maps, but it's much better. But if I'm just keeping the lights on at this point, that's really all I'm doing. Maybe it's time to just give it away or sell it or whatever, and say goodbye to the base. So yeah. Generally, what I do before I give up a base is I do a tour, just to kind of like, for my own archiving purposes, so I have something to check out later and remember the build and see what I'd built, and it kind of triggers that nostalgia. You know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just want to see what you'd done before and remember some of the cool stuff. You kind of bring back some of those memories. I definitely had a lot of good memories here on this base and on this game in general for sure. And let me show you a couple more things. This is where I used to do all my Rex breeding. Not a lot of people realize this, but the current Rex line that everybody on the entire damn cluster is using, I started it. It was my start. It was originally like a 12.3k health, 414 melee line that I started on my Ragnarok server, but I bred about, I don't know, 15 generations of it here on this base. Over here I had this big octagonal shaped arena where I bred mutation farming, where I did mutation farming here. And then this was my merging area where I tried to merge stats together. And I had some color merging going on over here. I also had a Theory line. All the Theories on the entire cluster are based off my melee as well. I got a 393 or 394. It wasn't very high, and it wasn't even a max level tame, but all of the top Theories today are bred from that same line. So yeah, that glitched mutation count Rex line, where they have like negative 2 billion mutations and stuff like that. That's all based off my line. Somebody else took over the mutations of it after around, I can't remember what, like 19,000 health and 484 melee. That's when I stopped doing it. But it's still based on my line. If you could actually see the whole lineage on both sides, you'd see some of them go all the way back to some of my guys, but you can't. You only see one line on both sides, and it's sometimes, you know, when you do a lot of merging, you'll lose the originals. But if you could see them, some of them would be these guys right here. These are some of my old alpha lines. My old alphas. Apophis was one of the first ones. And these are the later ones. Nestle, those were when I was getting around 350 hatch. I named them Loch Ness and Nessie and stuff like that because it was about 350. But yeah, those were pretty sweet Rexes. But yeah, I got tired of it because there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of fighting, and somebody else would get your lines and sell them, and they'd be all over the place. And people would be charging an arm and a leg for stuff that you put months and months and months of work into, and it was just really bullshit, and it just ruined the whole thing for me. So I stopped doing it. But yeah, this is where I used to do it. It was still pretty cool at the time. I was pushing the limit of the game. People have gotten real industrial about it now, where they have like hundreds and hundreds. Back when I used to do it, though, I had like 40 or 50 females that I would do the mutation farming with, and then I'd have another like 20 or so for merging. So the scale of it was far smaller than some of the stuff that people do today. But you know, I did it smart. I had spreadsheets for all the stats. I knew exactly the odds, and I knew how to improve my odds the best I could with what I had, and I made really good progress all the time. Yeah, I'm done with that, and pretty much done with this base as well. So this is the place. This is where the magic happened. I also used to breed these baryonyxes. I don't breed them anymore. I stopped. I got bored of these guys a long time ago. But check out some of these stats. This is probably a 2.5-year-old tame right here, and this was the top stats on the entire cluster up until about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, when somebody else finally passed it. And you know, the other thing is that they started from my bases too. Like if you check these bases, I mean, you'll have to remove the imprinting count, the imprinting modifier there, but all of the bases that people are using now, except for some of them, they deliberately got lower on food because people don't like to get high food anymore. I still think it's convenient. These things don't eat for months at a time, and they'll be fine. I actually have the trough full of fish right now, but I've literally been able to leave these things for 4 or 5 months without food, and they don't starve to death because their food's so high. But yeah, people leave that out for breeding now because they want to leave plenty of room for the other stats before they hit cap. But other than that one, the health, the stam, the weight, the melee, these were the bases that are on the new top stuff. Basically what happened was a handful of these that were the original bases for each particular stat I sold off individually, and somebody somehow got them all back together, merged them all back together, and had one with the exact same stats as this one here, except for they had, like, you know, 53 million mutations, and mine has 0 because I merged all of them clean with no mutations, and they merged all of the stuff that's passed down through, you know, a dozen different people, and then got remerged back together by, you know, a really unlikely convergence of all those genes coming back together. But yeah, they got all the dirty mutation lines, so they didn't have the clean basis for mutation farming that I did. But yeah, check it out. This is some of the original lineage on these guys. But anyway, that's not what the video's about. But I used to merge these as well, but I got bored of it. Nobody else seemed to really be into it. And after what happened with my Rexes, I didn't really want to share the lines anyway, so I didn't. I only gave them to a handful of people. And some of those leaked as well. So some of the like Galaxy baryonyxes that are like blue and pink and stuff like that, those were from my line as well. And those were a lot more merged already and mutated though. But anywho, this is the base. I used to merge these Argentavises as well, but my old bases were the 808 weight bases. those got replaced quite a long time ago now, like a year and a half ago, I guess. There's a much better base that people have been using now, but these were the original ones that were popular for like the first year or two. The first year and a half of the cluster, they were all based off Homer. There on the right, he had 808 weight, which was the highest on the cluster for ages, but no longer. So the new bases, the new lines of Argentavis aren't based on mine at all. But you might still see some of my lineage on this on it, because they're so common on the entire cluster that when people started merging the new stat lines into their old stat lines, some of my lineage was involved. So you'll still likely see the impact of my breeding on many species on the whole cluster. Like you'll see it on these Therizzinos. This one does not show it, but like I said, you only see one line on both the matrilineal and patrilineal side. So you know there's multiples. You know, by the time you're to the grandparents, you have two sets of grandparents on just 2 generations back. And so when you're talking about 10, 11 generations, you're talking about a lot more different, you know, lines that just don't show. It doesn't show them all. But if you did, you would see Chrissy in most of them, or Cersei. Chrissy and Cersei were both mine, and they were some of the best theories on the cluster for right at the beginning, because I got them right off the bat. I don't know why this one isn't showing. There it goes. This one doesn't show it either, but a lot of them will show it. Those are based on mine. That's the original high melee Therizzinos, and the high melee and health Rexes were mine, and the original high weight Argentavises were mine, but those got replaced, so they're not based on my stats anymore. But the others still are, so that's kind of cool. I left my mark on the whole cluster, you know, so it's I don't know, it's a little point of pride to know that some of your efforts, regardless of whether you have 0 credit for it or not, are still influencing the whole cluster. You know, they're a part of the history of the cluster, and all, you know, all the new lines are basically stacking on to that effort that you put in, so it still has, you know, an impact. It's kind of neat, you know, it's kind of a neat little thing to take pride in, I guess. But anywho, that's not really what the video was about. It was about this base. Farewell to my center octagon base. I'll still have my Ragnarok one, which is pretty similar. Also has a pretty amazing view. But that is it. I guess have a good one, everybody. See you next time.